Content creation doesn't have to take over your whole life. Planoly's social planner makes it easy to plan, visualize, and schedule your posts all in one place with placeholders to see how your feed will look and auto posting to save you time. It's built for women in marketing who want to stay creative and organized. If you're looking to optimize your content workflow, use code Sky Society 30 for 30% off your plan. Big thanks to Planoly for sponsoring this video. Sarah Thompson, Senior Manager, Influencer, and Social Media Marketing at Morphe. Welcome to Marketing Girly.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you on and walk through your career journey. Previously to working at Morphe, Sarah's worked at Tarte and L'Oreal, where she worked on Urban Decay and a couple other brands. And she's also part of the rebrand that Morphe had a little while ago. So we've got lots of fun stuff to chat about today. Before we get into all of that good stuff, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Sarah Thompson. Like you said, I'm the Senior Manager of Social Media and Influencer at Morphe. So it has me overseeing all things marketing for the company. So that's social, influencer, events, PR, basically any consumer touch point myself and my team is working on.
Okay, so lots of kind of go under that umbrella. Can you kind of tell us what maybe a week in the life looks like for you?
Definitely. It's a very busy company, I will say. We're a hybrid model, so we're about 3 days in office, 2 days at home. Something too, I would say that occupies a good chunk of my week is shooting content, so doing the social side. So our team is responsible for creating about, I would say 75% of the content that you see on our socials. So that is doing a lot of shoots and different kind of projects and planning and getting all of like those content moments, spaced out through the week. The other big part is tons of meetings, meeting with cross-functional teams and really staying a part of everything that's happening at the company so that you're well aware of, what's going on, what things we can press on more to help it amplify in a marketing sense, and then planning ahead for, busy years that we know are coming up, especially this time of year. It's planning all of 2026 and what's to come.
Hey, and you kind of work on social and influencer marketing a little bit. So maybe let's start with social. What does that part look like for your job?
Definitely. So I have an incredible social team under me. They're fantastic. So, like I said previously, we create a lot of that content in house through social shoots. Being a makeup brand, a lot of that is application. So, we're working with different makeup artists and shooting kind of this macro style content that we see performs really, really well for us. So, a lot of that is then briefing in these looks, actually starting first, concepting what the looks are going to be, then briefing them into the makeup artist, kind of seeing like, how we can press on it more too to make it more social friendly. So that's getting, different people's opinions and really working together to decide what we're creating for the week.
All right. And then how about on the influencer side?
On the influencer side, this has been really, really fantastic at Morphe, kind of being a part of the evolution of what the brand has looked like in terms of influencer. I think everyone knows Morphe for being an influencer powerhouse in its past and kind of the trials and tribulations that the brand has gone through. But it's been really incredible to take it to where it is now and see the growth that we've had in the influencer market. So that side of the job, again, a fantastic team underneath me that I'm so proud of all the work that they've done. But we've kind of taken a different approach to what we've done with influencer, which in my career was very different too. I think I'd always pressed on paid partnerships and seeing that as a huge driver of success in kind of influencer KPIs and getting brand recognition. But we've actually developed a fully organic approach that we've done in 2025, which has been really, really incredible to see it win and be so successful. So the way that we've built that is with two employees, and their entire job is basically building relationships within the community. So it's keeping close with the network that we have and building retention.
Can you share more about that? What that looks like? That's so unique.
Yeah, it's definitely a very unique strategy that we have. So those two employees, each of them have 500 influencers assigned to them each.
Wow.
Huge network that they both
Yes.
have. So basically their job on a day-to-day basis is connecting with that 500, whether it's through like a DM and reaching out, whether it's through, gifting for their birthday or gifting for a holiday, anything that really is a touch point. It could even be taking them to lunch, taking them to a concert, meeting up with them in some way. Like their job is primarily to like build the brand relationship and build a relationship with these influencers.
Fun job.
So fun.
Yeah.
Such an incredible job.
Yes. How so are you guys one of like I'm sure not a lot of companies maybe have a role like that. Like, how did that come about to kind of start and really focus on influencer relationships?
I think we're looking a lot at retention and, you can send a PR package, you can send your product out, but it isn't coming from anyone in that sense. And so we wanted to really build that sense of community within the
Mhm.
company. So by having, the best way to do that is through people and relationships. And when you think of Morphe, like you think of that rep or that person that you're working with, that it kind of gives a face to the brand.
Yeah.
Not being a founder brand, there isn't necessarily like a touch point that then people think of or a person or, those attributes that come with having a founder. So
Mhm.
we've kind of created a team that at least gives influencer community someone to think of
Yeah.
when they're getting like gifting or when they're being involved with a brand.
Yeah, what a great idea.
Mm,
That makes so much sense, especially since if you're gonna get a package, it's not just gonna be like from Morphe, it'll be from the person you actually know there,
exactly.
and they can even make that package more personal for you, or like you said, do even I always say like birthday wishing people happy birthday is kind of like such a great way to make someone
Definitely.
feel special and seen and somebody that remembers those things and makes those touch points, I can imagine is super invaluable.
No, it's amazing to see like the gifting that they do and like they know everyone's birthday, they know who's getting married, like they're so
Oh.
involved in the community. They're essentially becoming friends with these people that they're working with and wanting to be there for those moments
Mhm.
for their life.
Amazing. Okay. I want to come back and talk about your role with the rebrand, but let's rewind the clock a little bit. And I want to talk about your break into the beauty industry, which started with field sales. So,
Yes.
can you tell me about that?
I became very beauty obsessed, I feel like very early. I don't think I knew really what that meant, but I had an amazing opportunity to start working in field sales, and that definitely just took off for me, I will say. So the day I turned 18 actually was when I could start working, and that's when I did. So I started working originally for Becca. I don't know if you remember that brand.
I don't.
It's been a while. They're not around
Okay.
anymore, but I started working for Becca doing field sales, and I was going to Sephora corporate at the time and, like, would do the trainings for all the employees on the brand, and it was really incredible because then in that sense, I got to learn product really, really well because I was having to go train on it, but then I was also getting the consumer side of everything too and getting firsthand opinions. I was able to, hear people's thoughts, their needs, like, their wants for product, and just all the feedback in the world that just helped me develop my first love for beauty, but also so many like ideas that I wanted to keep building and growing within this, beauty world because I wanted to do more with it.
Yeah. Okay. And this obviously maybe wasn't the start, maybe that I'm not sure actually what you had imagined for yourself, but obviously it's a bit different than what you're doing now. Were you
Yeah.
just excited to work in this space? Were you nervous to take on a role like that?
I think I knew that, school was such like a big piece to any career and I wanted to be doing something though in a field that I loved. So I was able to do field sales while I was in university. So I
Mhm.
was going to school studying business finance at the time while then spending my free time playing with makeup. Like it was
Yeah.
kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of naturally happened that once I graduated, there was the opportunity to move forward with L'Oreal and move down to the corporate side of things. So I
Mhm.
started at one of their programs they have, their junior marketing associate program. And then just that blossomed my career from there.
Okay, so tell me about your time at L'Oreal. What did you start to learn about what you loved about marketing?
Yeah, so then this was kind of, I would say, the pivotal moment, the change of things. So it was like this great consumer side from field sales that I had learned. And then I moved over to the brand side at NYX. So I was working on the lip category and developing product and working to create, all the branding behind so many of their fantastic lip launches. So it was, really taking that original experience of what people wanted, consumers were saying. And then I was able to go basically make the product and help give feedback on what the consumers actually want.
Yeah, okay, amazing. And how did your role evolve kind of through your time there?
I would say I fell in love with everyone I was working with at L'Oreal, like, I was learning so much, and it was just such a fantastic environment to start my career in. Like, there were so many mentors available to me, there was just so much information, and I was seeing so many different spaces to work in within the company. I would say starting in brand, you're working so cross-functionally, like, you're really, meeting everyone from VM to creative teams to social influencers, so I was really exposed to everything to do with marketing at that time, And I ended up moving originally over to social analytics, which was very different than what I had done before. But I would say was really a pivotal moment in my career because I was learning so much about KPIs and learning just all the numbers behind what makes something successful. And, every position needs that background of numbers, data, and I kind of got that
Yeah.
got that full force in that position.
That reminds me, one of my very first episodes I actually recorded with Marketing Girly was with the marketing coordinator at Vogue. Her name is Adelie, and I always remember that episode because she talked about how important analytics are when it comes to social. And when you think about the industry, you maybe think about it creatively and posting aesthetic content and stuff that
Mhm.
looks good. And when it comes down to what makes someone good at a lot of those roles, it really is the data side and understanding the analytics.
Definitely.
So, can you share maybe a little bit more insight into what you really learned when it came to like KPIs that mattered or metrics that mattered, or how that kind of challenged you to go from maybe like more of like a broad brand role into more of like a data centered role?
Definitely. I would say even at Morphe is where I really pressed on that even more and really working with people who can look at analytics in such a different way has been incredible to me because I think I was so just looking at it in a social sense and seeing the ability to tie them to sales and different data just helps you build an analytics even more. I would say it's knowing that, like, everything you do, you can, at the end of the day, see a performance result for, which I would say wasn't always my mindset when I was thinking so creatively, but it really does help guide decision making. And, even if you don't think something will work in terms of the data point, how can you press on it even more to make the idea even stronger to then come back and have it work in that sense as well?
Mhm.
So I think data really gives you the ability to refine your ideas and grow them into a sense that you're using them as a guideline.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway. From L'Oreal, you moved over to Tarte. Is that correct?
So Tarte, I was where I was doing field sales as
Oh, wait,
well.
so I mixed those 2. Okay,
Yes.
so you started doing field sales, and Tarte was one of the brands you were doing
Yes.
field sales.
So I
Okay.
started at Becca, then moved to Tarte, and
Okay.
then started with the program at L'Oreal.
Okay, so touching lots of different beauty brands. I was moving over to L'Oreal, was quite a big company, and then moved over to Morphe. So tell me about that transition.
It was very different at the time, moving over to Morphe from L'Oreal. L'Oreal is a huge conglomerate. There's so many people there.
Mhm.
So the switch over to Morphe and it being a lot smaller was very different for me. They had just gone through the bankruptcy and it was a completely different company. So it was kind of coming into no one knew what it was going to be at that moment. I think there were so many amazing visions and it was like, how do we make this happen? Which was really an incredible thing. It was almost like this startup mindset within a very established brand.
Mhm.
So it was really fun at that time to just, kind of be a smaller team in a smaller company and just really be making things happen so quickly.
Was there any fear or hesitation joining a company that just went through such kind of a crazy change and had a very, very lean team, or what was kind of going through your brain at that point?
I think I just saw it as such an incredible opportunity to grow, and I just wanted to jump on it. I think it's exciting in those moments, and I knew that being in a bigger company, there's definitely more security in that sense, and you kind of have this growth path. Moving over to something smaller where it's a little scrappier and you're getting so much done, like, I think you can really amplify your career and your ability to work, if that makes sense. Like,
Mhm.
your ability to just jump on things and move forward with them will catapult your career when you have that type of environment.
Mhm. So one of the biggest things that you worked on while you were there was the rebrand. So what was your approach starting out on how you went about such a massive undertaking?
I think Morphe had such a strong opinion on what they wanted product to be. So that's really where it all started. The teams that work so closely on the brand's product had, changed the packaging, they changed everything. So this visual identity was already so different to begin with that it was just kind of a matter of once it transitioned over to the consumer side and people were seeing it, like it was already there. So it was just like,
Mhm.
how do we make it bigger and get it in more people's hands so that everyone's able to see for themselves what the new product looks like.
Mhm. Is there anything that we might not know as everyday consumers of like what goes behind a rebrand or what goes on that we just like maybe don't understand or don't know takes place?
I think it's a lot about, like, how do you go through a rebrand? How do you express that something's different and moving forward without also shutting down everything in the past? You know, you're not trying to get rid of the consumer who loved your product before. You're trying to bring them on this journey with you. So while you're growing and wanting to expand your network, you're also trying to make sure that you're bringing people along that journey. So I think like that's something that you forget about in when you think of doing a rebrand
Mhm.
because so many brands either are starting and they're trying to establish themselves and who they are, or, you know, it's a brand that's been around for years who kind of has like their set in stone consumer where it was difficult to say like how do we move these people with us while also expanding who we want to be. And I think that was probably the biggest challenge of a rebrand
Mhm.
and something you wouldn't necessarily think of.
And how do you feel like or what strategies did you do or things that you made sure that you kept top of mind to make sure that that was executed in that vision that you kinda mentioned there?
I think so much of it was on the influencer side for that
Mm.
piece because, you know, there were so many core influencers to the brand that we wanted to make sure, you know, we're not leaving you behind. Like you're still coming with us. The brand look and feel just might be different.
Yeah. All right. Now, when it comes to influencer marketing, I think it's just such a fun thing to talk about. Is there anything in that space that you're excited about? Trends that you're keeping an eye on, anything like that?
I think it's the community piece. Like, I think there's such a desire within the influencer community for people to connect that I see that really growing with brands as well. Like, bringing influencers in to be a part of like your brand community. And I can
Mhm.
continue to see brands do it in such unique ways, you know, like using influencers in photo shoots or inviting them to make content with you. Where I feel like before it's been so separate, like you have your social team and your influencer team, and then your influencer network where I think now the influencer network is working with social teams at brands, which is a really exciting trend to see and like kind of having them in the kitchen too.
Mhm.
Like influencers own content strategies for themselves, like they can work and do it with brands too.
How about for on the influencer side, what have you seen that makes influencers really successful and grow now? Because I feel like it's always changing. I feel like 5 years ago is a lot different than what it is now, and it's still always evolving on, like, what makes influencers really strong. Anything that you've kind of noticed in the last couple years?
I feel like it's consistency and it's having an opinion. So I think there's
Mm.
so many influencers who consistently show that same opinion and they develop communities that trust them. So, you know, I think there's been a history of influencers too that have kind of had communities that they built around certain things, then they'll switch their, you know, mindset when they start to be successful in a sense. So it's really like staying with your community and expressing to them and bringing them similar to a rebrand, like on the journey with you,
Mhm.
where it's developing content that they want to see and explaining to them, like, if you are changing it, kind of why.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, now how about on the social side of things? Social media has also changed a ton. Obviously, we have like TikTok coming in, but we also have just, I know Reddit's getting more popular. There's so much that's always changing in the social media landscape. So, what are trends that you're excited about right now?
I'm excited about bringing people into the behind the scenes. I think that's been a trend we've
Mm.
seen brands do lately, and it really just shows kind of like the evolution of what content has been. Like, I think there was a time when it was so polished and just so like Pinterest board aesthetic, and now it can be a little scrappier and a little more behind the scenes of what's going on. I think it's a really fun trend that I hope stays.
Yeah, I think we're even starting to see, like, the employee trend of companies
Yes,
bringing their employees on. We have behind the scenes, which I also feel like that's also my favorite part of conversations I have on this podcast too, is like, "Oh my gosh, like, that's kind of what happens behind the scenes," because we don't usually get an insight into that, and it's also I feel like humanizes a brand versus seeing, like,
definitely.
a super polished campaign, but getting to kind of see the messier stuff behind it.
Definitely. And I think, like, that's something for Morphe that I wanna see them grow in even more as we look at content for next year is we've built this influencer side and this, like, open invitation to that community to connect with us and, like, build relationships with the internal teams. So, like, now how can we press on that for social? Like,
Mhm.
we've seen the success with how it works in influencer. Now how can we, as a social team, work to kind of create that mindset and same, like, connection with a community online?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And on the career side of things, so you've gotten to grow your career to such an incredible place now. Looking back, is there any advice that you'd maybe give somebody who really wants to work in beauty or really wants to work in influencer or social? What are some skills that they should be working on now?
I would say having an open mindset to learning. Like, there were so many different routes that I took in my career to get where I am today, and I learned something so valuable from each of them. So even if you're doing something beauty related and it's not exactly what you want to be doing right now, like what experience can you gain from it to shape your next steps?
Mhm.
And I think it's the willingness to jump on opportunities even if they're scary or it might seem not exactly what you want, but it's, what can I learn here? How can I develop myself more and kind of keeping that open mindset?
And then how about we have a lot of girls right now that are on the job search.
Yes.
Obviously, at the time of recording this, too, we've seen a lot of companies have layoffs. We've seen that even in the beauty space. And so I know more people than now than, well, not ever, but than in a little while are on the job search. And it can be definitely really grueling and difficult. Do you have any advice for somebody in terms of standing out if they are applying to a beauty brand or any kind of tips you have on the job search side?
I would say building relationships and don't be afraid to reach out to people you could potentially have as mentors, kind of help guide you into different job opportunities. I think that's one of the biggest things when you're searching for a job is finding people, to network with and kind of expose you to what's out there.
Yeah, I think relationship building is super, super important. Is there anything that you like to do when it comes to building a relationship? Maybe because I know sometimes, for example, like you might meet somebody at a past job or you might reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, but how do you kind of maybe maintain that or anything that you like to do with relationships that you've built throughout your career so that way those relationships stay strong?
I think when you're meeting someone originally and you wanna, like, build that mentor relationship with them, it's kind of like staying top of mind, and it can feel like, you're bugging someone, but just even check-ins or asking directly for check-ins too with that person, I think is a big piece to staying on top of keeping them as a mentor. I would say something like I did was constantly following up or just having conversations with the people that I wanted to really connect with and felt like I was learning from. So whether it just be like a phone call and checking in or getting on their schedule, being like, hey, I would love to have like a weekly phone call with you or whatever it may be. It doesn't need to be that often, but just like if you put that in someone's mind that you want to do quarterly check-ins with them or like meetings, it just helps them to plan for it, and I think you'll stand out because then they're planning with you. Like, you're not
Yeah.
just popping in and out.
Yeah, I think that's great advice because I think I definitely hear that advice a lot. Everyone's like, okay, I know I need to network. I know I need to build
Mhm.
relationships, but the executing can feel a bit intimidating
Definitely.
sometimes.
I think if you do that for yourself too, and like, I'm gonna do 2 quarterly meetings with mentors that I've had, like, it helps you also plan and
Hmm.
it not feel as overwhelming too.
Yeah, I think that's a good actionable tip. Two, yeah, two, we say two a quarter, 2
2 a
month.
quarter, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Now, how about on the social side? There's lots of platforms that we have to choose from. TikTok probably being the one that most of us are using the most often now, but there's newer ones like I mentioned. Like I feel like Reddit is getting really popular right now. I know the social media app that's most popular is always kind of changing a bit, but what is your favorite platform or any that you are kind of eyeing right now?
I think TikTok is really the place for brands to win because it is that personable content. I think we look at Instagram a bit more now like a Pinterest board. Like it is very
Mm,
polished and very
hmm.
aesthetic and you can get a look and a feel for a brand, but TikTok is where the personality of the brand lives. So I think like that's at least, for Morphe and for what we're doing where I really want to develop that personality piece of the brand and kind of like giving that behind the scenes look like we were talking about.
Yeah.
I think we know how to do polish really, really well. I think a lot of the community does too. We know how to take gorgeous, stunning visuals and turn them into posts, but building personality is a lot harder.
Yeah. Anything that you are looking there on building personality? Because I feel like it's a fine line for brands on being creative and trying to do unique things on social while also maintaining true to their identity. And obviously, you want to be playful, but at the end of the day, you're still a brand.
Mhm.
So, what are you kind of looking for there when it comes to expressing personality on TikTok?
I think it's still doing it behind, what brands are here to do is product. Like we're here to deliver product, we're here to educate on it. So it's still creating personality content where that is the center. It doesn't mean personality should, trump over what the brand is known for, what they're doing. It should all, I think, come back to product, but it can have like that personal spin to it.
Mhm. And then how about we're kind of going into obviously in the new year, we're starting to see so many beauty brands launch new products. I feel like, well, for me as a girl, the beauty space is just so fun. I feel
Yes.
like it's always fun to see the new products and everything, but I also know as brands, you are likely competing for attention when it comes to consumers. So, how do you think about that when it comes to marketing or influencer or social on being able to stand out in a space where there is a lot of saturation?
I think it's just knowing your audience well enough that what you're doing resonates with them and kind of having tailored strategies to where you're meeting them at. So if you're, like I was saying, the polished look and feel of Instagram, if that's what your audience loves and that's what they resonate with, it's putting the launch and the product there in that way. If you have a community that resonates with TikTok content and it being more humorous, making sure that you're touching on that for each launch. If you have, I mean, it can go so many directions. If you have people who really respond to CRM or email and things like that, just making sure that you're pulling all those different levels of where you know your audience is at and
Mhm.
not changing necessarily for every launch, but just kind of meeting the community where they are.
I love that. And is there a campaign that you've done at Morphe that is maybe one of your favorites, since you've been there, or one, like, recent that comes to mind that you really love?
I think we have so many on the way that I'm so excited about. If I had to look back at this year, I would say our Cheek Thrills campaign, I really, really loved. It was the brand's first time really breaking into kind of a color complexion product. So it was, I would say, like new for everyone. Everyone was so, so excited about it. And it really launched the brand into a really successful place in terms of that color complexion world. So I would say like seeing to what we did on the marketing side and the way we activated it was so so fun for the team and we saw it really resonate with the community too.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought together all these strategies we had been working on in the months prior in terms of, building our influencer team the way that we had, building our socials the way that we had. And it was kind of the moment where all of that came together.
For those who maybe don't know what that launch is, can you share a little bit of insight into what it looked like, or maybe some of those components that you mentioned that you worked on in terms of social and influencer?
Yeah, Cheek Thrills is it's a 3 finish blush. So it is a balm, a luminous kind of shimmer, and then the blush product itself. So that product it's a theme in terms of travel. So it's really, really fun in that sense. So the team did is we called it Around the World in 7 Thrills, and we were able to activate and kind of bring all of our communities together. So like what I was saying with influencer and like they have these assignments of people who they're meeting with. Obviously not everyone's here in Los Angeles. So the way that we tailored that Around the World in 7 Thrills was going to a bunch of different locations to be able to meet up with our influencer community
How fun.
and in doing that, of course, we had incredible social content come from everywhere that we were. But it was really amazing to kind of be launching a product that then so well matched with what we were doing in terms of influencer and social. So, we were able to go to Miami and launch the Cabana Club product in a themed way, but also invite all of our local community in terms of influencer there to join us.
So is influencer, would you say, like, really central to the marketing at Morphe?
Definitely. Very, definitely.
Do you feel like that's something that's unique to Morphe or something that you feel like a lot of beauty brands are focusing in on now?
I would say definitely a lot of brands are focusing and now you can see brands are using influencers to test product before they're launched. They're getting them from the start of product development now to when it's reaching consumers. That I would say influencers are more involved now with brands than ever.
Okay. And then where do you see that growing or changing at all in the next couple years?
I see it growing. I think it's a trend that's around to stay. I think it might change who those influencers are and who we're working with, or maybe what categories that we're touching on. Is there a way to bring in different demographics of influencers that could give even more valuable opinions?
Mhm.
So I think those things will shift, but I definitely think there's still this demand to kind of have outside counsel, for lack of better words, when developing a product that is already so tapped into the community.
Do you bring in influencers when you're like about before you launch product for their input before?
We've done it in the past. We did it
Mhm.
with a launch last year, and I know from our product development team, it's something we want to continue doing is having influencers test products from, first lab samples on.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Okay. And when it comes for you in your own career personally, what are things that you're excited about or areas that you feel like you've really grown in the past that you really want to maybe grow into more or learn new things? Like what excites you?
I would say it's moments like that Cheat Thrills launch when you see the social side of things, the PR side of things, and the influencer side coming together. I think when we look at marketing, there's so many branches, and when there's that aha moment when they're all married, like, it is such a amazing feeling, and now I would say that is something that personally I strive for every launch is to have all these things marry, even if it's a small launch to a big launch, it really helps catapult the product to be successful, and you just see everything turn on in terms of success.
Yeah. I think that must be like a really great feeling too, especially if you're doing something that's like an event or in person and getting to kind of experience that in the moment. I can imagine is kind of a surreal feeling.
Definitely.
And how about on the team side in terms of leadership? You mentioned that you've got a great team that works with you. Um, what do you maybe look for in terms of bringing new people onto your team? What are things that you feel like maybe somebody who's listening and really wants to work in the beauty or the social or the influencer space? Any skills that they should work on or grow into?
I would say it's the duality of being as equally creative as you are analytical. I would say
Mm.
that's something I heard in my career when I was, being mentored by people, and I would say it's something I look for in my team now. Their understanding of the analytics and the creative too are equally important.
What is one way somebody can work on that like right now at home?
I would say just educating yourself and, being like aware of what different KPIs are, or, there's always kind of new releases in terms of what TikTok and Instagram are giving us. So, like, keeping up on things like what is a hook rate? It's so different than what engagement was that we were so focused on
Mm.
years ago. So, just like being able to evolve and educate yourself and kind of like knowing what all these KPIs are and how to action them.
What is a hook rate?
Hook rate it is a specific KPI that then looks at how long like a 3-second video view is. So how long your
Mm.
audience is staying. So it's similar to engagement, like in the same realm, but that hook rate will kind of predict a lot of success for a video because it's whether or not your content is entertaining
So it's how many people watch the first 3 seconds? Interesting.
or
So
you're staying on
or
after.
are staying so how many people are staying on after the first
Yes.
seconds?
So like how strong is that initial hook that
Mm.
then keeps your audience there?
Interesting. Is that what other metrics are you maybe looking for when it comes to, like, TikTok videos?
TikTok, I would say saves and shares right now are one of the biggest things we're looking at because again, like hook rate, save shares, all that is about content specifically. It's like how entertaining it is.
Mm.
So, a video view, like you can get someone scrolling. It kind of is what it is. But those three really tell you how entertaining your content was and like what are people sticking around for.
So do saves matter more than likes?
I would think so. In my opinion, they do.
Interesting, because 'cause you've got view, like, save, share. I would imagine or comment.
Hmm.
I would imagine share being maybe, like, one of the most important metrics
Yeah. Save and share, I would say
over comment.
over comment even.
Really?
Hmm.
Oh my goodness. So is creating savable content something that's really top of mind then?
Definitely, especially, when as an artistry brand, we're building makeup looks and building, different content where we're showing like macro application, like having people save that is so, so important because, we're becoming then like an authority in terms of what the look is and how to
Mhm.
create it. So we're teaching artistry skill. So by people saving it, it's just showing how like entertaining and educational that content really is.
Do you feel like when the TikTok algorithm sees the save, then it's going to push it more than if it were to see a like on that video?
I definitely think TikTok looks at engagement. I don't know if it's as specific in terms of like saves versus likes.
Mhm.
I think any type of engagement with posts like that, it definitely will catapult it in the algorithm.
Mhm.
I think the importance of the save and the share is the entertainment value.
Mhm. Yeah, because it's obviously there's lots of different metrics when it comes to engagement, like, especially for TikTok, there's lots of ways somebody can engage with the video, and I know back with like, YouTube was, like, the main channel for influencer marketing, comments were huge, right?
Huge.
Because you can have views and you can have likes, but is somebody, like, gonna care enough to go and write something? And I even see this for creators that I feel like do a really great job of building an authentic community, is their comments aren't just basic ones, so they're, like, really, really personal too, and you can
Yeah.
just tell, like, oh, wow, their audience is really engaged and really cares about what they're saying, even if they're not even doing anything crazy, like, they're there in the comments and showing up, and I always remember back when I did YouTube influencer marketing that we could have 2 accounts with similar subscribers, similar views, but
Mhm.
we'd always prefer the account with more comments.
More comments. Comments, I think, are definitely incredible in terms of then helping create follow-up content
Mhm.
and then being able to see, like, what your community wants next.
Mhm.
So I think, like, the piece with the save and the share tells you the entertainment. So then that tells you, like, the filming of the video, the way it was set up, like, that's working. And then it's like, what does your community want to see next? So then, like, how can you take what's in the comments and now use that same content style to create your next piece of content?
Yeah, amazing. Okay, well, we chatted all through your career journey. We've touched on social, we touched on influencer, we've covered so many different topics. Is there any last advice you want to share with the marketing girlies?
Any last advice? I would say to always make sure like you have an opinion. I think that's such an important thing too when you ask like about what my team does and like working with all of them. I value them so much for their opinions and being able to speak up. So I think when you're in rooms, don't be afraid to share what you're thinking and really have a voice.
I think that also just ties into what you mentioned about the influencers that are also doing really well is they also have an opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's whether you're an influencer, whether you're working in social, whether you're looking specifically at analytics, having an opinion on what you're doing is so important.
Yeah, I think that's great advice and also something that if you aren't feeling super confident that you can kind of work on being able to share that and say that because I also think the more you have an opinion, the more also you become more confident in your sense of self and that opinion is also what makes you different from all the other people in a room and can really help make you somebody that's like a bit more unique or somebody that's yeah, going to maybe challenge your boss or bring a new idea to
Definitely.
the table.
And I would say too, like it can feel so scary to speak up. And if that isn't, where you feel comfortable, just being able to have then an open dialogue. Like a lot of my team, if you are shyer, and I understand not wanting to speak up in a meeting with the CEO and people there, but being able to then like communicate with me on the side and say, like, hey, I think this or that, or I have a reason behind it. Like I'm here to help amplify your voice too for my team. So then when I share back and I'm presenting, like I'm always referring back to my team that
Yeah.
like this was their opinion, they felt this way, and like how can we work on it?
Yeah. I love that. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on Marketing Girly and sharing your career journey. This has been such a fun conversation.
Yes, this has been amazing.